fantastic. So we're here to win, but we're also here to talk about how you win tech talent with outbound recruiting. I assume everyone is here because you are either a part of, you lead, or it is your every single day job to try and bring on fantastic, smart, I mean, everyone's smart, but like the right fit candidates for these engineering and tech roles that you have. So let's get into it. You do it on the daily. Good job, David. Great. So first things first, who am I? Why am I talking at you? My motto, I love that I was asked to kind of give this. My motto is own your voice. The first part of owning your voice is building it. And if you don't know kind of what you want to say or how you want to say it, like you have to build up that confidence. And then once that confidence is there, in order to maintain it, you own it. So I like to say own my voice or own your voice. I have been selling software for 7 years. I joined hireEZ in October, and I was actually brought on as, ooh, David, I'm also from Atlanta. Or sorry, that's, you were just saying that because that's where I live currently. I understand. I was brought on as an enterprise AE. So I was actually outbound recruited, which is really, really cool. And because and that's the whole reason why we're talking today. If you want, there is an entire blog post written about kind of the story of how I was reached out to by the hireEZ recruiter. She gave me space, time. She leveraged hireEZ engagement. It was wonderful. And at the end, like once I was brought on, she only admitted then that half of the emails that she sent me were totally automated and like sent out by the software itself. So really cool. I love being here. And now what's even cooler is that in January, I switched to a sales enablement position. And because hireEZ and the team is invested so much in the people that it brings in, not necessarily on what role they're supposed to play or what kind of end they're supposed to meet for the company, I was given permission to interview and then also support to transition to enablement. So now hireEZ has my loyalty for the next several years because they invested in me. So I'm going to invest in them. So that's a little bit about me and why I'm here to talk to you today about all of these lovely topics. So first things first, we're going to address the current landscape for hiring tech talent. Like, where can they be found? How and when are tech employees changing jobs? We'll look at data based on company, so where they're leaving, based on job title, which job titles are leaving kind of the fastest or at what rate, and then also years of experience. So hopefully, and this was actually super useful when I looked at the data myself, because you might be trying to find certain candidates who have 5+ years or 4+ years. I remember, I mean, everyone here, and I'm kind of curious. Can you drop a number in the chat, the number of jobs that you've applied to yourself over time? And I'm curious if that like has dropped because everyone is now recruiting or being recruited as opposed to doing their own applicants. But either way, the point is here, like I used to never apply to certain jobs because I was scared that the years of experience requirement, like it would just completely get rid of me. We're actually seeing that there are different groups of years of experience or kind of bands where you might not think to recruit from, but they're probably just as qualified as a candidate. We'll also go over how to make progress with diversity hiring, how we can help with that, and then what skills and expertise you should consider. Education, of course, where to source. We all know and want to go to the MITs, the Cornells, but there are also some other options that you should be looking for or sourcing within. And then, of course, kind of some outbound recruiting strategies you can use to remain competitive and make sure that what you've got going on leans or lends itself to winning tech talent. So I'm curious, tech recruiting, hard doesn't even begin to describe it. Aaron, thank you so much for telling me that you apply less frequently, or you've seen obviously applicants go down, but what are some other words you guys would use to describe tech recruiting today? Fun and rewarding. Okay. David sassy. Mark says bananas. Do we have any other fruit options? Diverse. Ooh, Shell, I love that. Also, I love your name. Extremely competitive. Right. It's challenging. It's chaos. Okay. Thank you. You're making my point. Let's kind of talk about like why it's chaos. So first of all, with the pandemic, with life as we know it today, there has been an overwhelming amount of work from home opportunities. And that honestly gives us candidates, like, we know our worth. We know what we can say no to because there are a bunch of options. There are more jobs than people. Last I looked, it was about a week and a half ago. I think there are 10.9 million open jobs. Of course, that's not all within engineering or developer roles or tech roles, but in the US, 10.9 million open jobs, and there aren't that many candidates. So when it's a super competitive market, especially when some companies are requiring like coming back into the office and others are offering remote, and in my personal favorite, a hybrid option, I mean, we have more choices, so we're going to take our time making those huge decisions. And honestly, okay, so I just mentioned the 10.9 million jobs. There's so much demand. Every company is pivoting. We are growing, we are evolving. And if you're not, you're probably sensing that if you're not pivoting and changing your go-to-market, or at least doing something that's pioneering in your industry, like, you aren't going to attract the kinds of people who are like the hub. Especially, I'm a millennial. I don't know who else on the call is a millennial, but there's a New York Times article called The FOMO Economy. If you haven't read it, please, please, please read it. I think it's great. I myself, essentially, when the pandemic hit and everyone was working locked inside, a lot of people decided, you know what? Like, I don't want to miss out, fear of missing out, on what could be for me. I want to go pursue my entrepreneurial interests. This job isn't cutting it for me. It's not okay. Like, I'm going to take my talent elsewhere. And a lot of millennials, but also the generation above and below us, have digital skills that when they take elsewhere, that is a major or moderate impact on the business that they left. And as you can see here, almost 60% of organizations are feeling this. A couple of specific examples. At Facebook, almost 50% of candidates who actually received job offers in 2021, they turned them down, or the first quarter of 2021. I wonder how that kind of progressed throughout 2021, throughout the rest of the year. And Bureau of Labor Statistics indicates that by 2026, we'll have almost 1.2 million engineers that are needed that aren't there. They either don't exist or they're working somewhere else. So honestly, what's happened is that companies are forced to they're forced to pivot, but they're essentially, there's a gap that they can't fill. And 2 data points I'm going to call out specifically: 29.4% of candidates are for software architect positions, 39.6% for DevOps. Like, only that percentage of the candidates that are available are fully meeting the employer's requirements, which kind of leads you to beg the question, like, are our requirements not necessarily written correctly? Are we expecting too much? I'm not sure. So we've assessed the problem, and I'm curious, can everyone resonate? I can see the chat now. Again, it sucks that I can't see you. I'm sure everyone's beautiful and wonderful, but did the problem we just described, did that resonate? A yes, a no? Absolutely. Any kind of words thrown in the chat, just want to. Okay. Yay, thank you, Jack. Yep, current state. So how do we win them? We do that with outbound recruiting, but what exactly do I mean? Here's the definition. It is a proactive strategy. It is a shift in mindset, truly. If recruiters today don't consider themselves salespeople, they need to rework that. It's not bad to be a salesperson. Believe me, I was a salesperson for 7 years. And I honestly, by the end of it, I was proud of who I was at work professionally and how I showed up and the really, really hard calls and conversations that I would have. I mean, essentially, we're salespeople and recruiters. They have to challenge themselves to recognize that the value add they could bring by picking up the phone or sending an email to a candidate is so much more than what they were doing previously. It's just there. It's richer, and it's intentional. Outbound recruiting is an intentional way to engage with candidates. And I promise you, Kunwar or Reese, if you could drop the blog of how I was brought on to hireEZ, I mean, I had quit a very high paying sales job to pursue photography. I was over it. I was done. And all I wanted was to see if I could do it. And the recruiter who reached out to me, she reached out to me, and the subject line of the first email was basically like, I see you're a photographer, you have beautiful work. And I was like, who is this human? So it's just taking a pause and actually like understanding who the candidate is and all of their different facets is so, so useful. So brings me to my second bullet, going beyond typical sourcing to find and engage potential candidates and spark their interest. Say something that is about them, not about your company. They don't care because all of the companies are kind of sounding the same, especially on LinkedIn InMail. InMails they have their purpose. It is not personally how I would prefer to be recruited. So outbound recruiting is essentially leveraging a data-driven approach with AI and market insights. We do all the hard number crunching for you so that you can select and engage the right candidates with the right message. And here's the most important part, at the right time. I wasn't ready to come back to corporate America, but that's okay. Tiara, she gave me space. She said, no worries. Is 30 days okay with you? We reconnected in 30 days and I still wasn't ready even after a conversation. And she said, no worries. I will come back to you when the time is right. And eventually she did. What's most important though, and I said this in the beginning, is that it is definitely a shift from passive and reactive. Oh, what are my inbound applicants today? What did Indeed get to me? What did this job board post for me? Like, to this proactive mindset where recruiters are in control. You are no longer waiting for someone to respond to you when you have the ability to like connect with them and call them. This is a quote from Chris Russell, managing director at RecTech Media. To make this interesting, would you like me to read it in a French, my attempted French accent, or my attempted British accent? Okay, one vote for British. Does anyone else care? Or should I just read it normally? Jack says French. I prefer my French, so let's do Reese. Okay. Okay, let me get one more vote from an actual attendee, or I can just be normal. Oh my goodness. All right. We'll do French since that's what I'm comfortable with. Thank you, Tulu. It's about being proactive versus reactive. In a time where workers have more choice than they know what to do with, the companies that win talent are the ones who take the initiative. In this case, outbound recruiting is equivalent to outbound sales tactics, which of course is what I've said repeatedly the last couple of minutes. Sounds a little German. I definitely am German. Oops, sorry about that. 9. So let's dive into the data behind hireEZ. We are at our core a data company. We are aggregating information from over 45 different platforms, bringing them all together, crunching the numbers, inserting machine learning, inserting artificial intelligence to help you make better informed decisions about who you should go after, when you should go after them, and what you should say. So let's think about where these humans live. Where can tech talent be geographically found today? You might think these locations on the left. It's true. That is where everyone else thinks they are because it's an accurate statement. The top searched locations for tech talent are New York, Seattle, San Fran, Boston, and DC. However, there are other markets that are less searched, and there is a great cluster of tech talent in Houston. Didn't know that, and I lived in Austin for 2 years. Houston, Austin, San Jose, Atlanta, and Philadelphia. You can't recruit me. I am certainly not tech talent. I wouldn't be able to develop anything for you, but I'm sure there are many of my peers and friends here who absolutely could. And then, my personal favorite, Philadelphia. So again, this information is taken from our platform, from Talent Market Data and EZ Insights, to help you understand, like, where else could I be looking where potentially the market isn't saturated with my competitors. Okay, so now let's look into talent movement. So outbound egress flow of traffic. Essentially, a higher movement rate in the last 6 months. We've seen 25% from JP Morgan Chase, 24% from Berkshire, 24% from Meta, and 20% from Amazon. So let's say if you were researching competitors or you were looking up your competitors in EZ Insights, you could get a sense of, okay, how quickly or what percentage of outbound movement, and instead of outbound, I should say, talent's exiting, they're moving elsewhere, right? Maybe that's where you start first. It's a higher movement rate. An average one, around 14% from Microsoft. And then a lower, so maybe it wouldn't behoove you to try reaching out to humans who work at Apple, Visa, Alphabet. You could probably take this information, look on Glassdoor or any kind of report like 2022 best to work at companies, right? These companies are probably fairly high up on the list. If the company culture is solid and people are happy, that would explain why there's a lower movement rate. Now let's look at it based on job title. So full stack developers, cloud architects, backend developers, they out. They're moving, they're going somewhere else. So I'm not sure what your job titles are today, but like if you look at them, compare what your open job recs are saying or requiring and what a backend developer can do, what skills, what expertise they have. Like searching for backend developers might be a good idea right now. It might not identically match up what your hiring manager is looking for, but could it? And again, armed with this data, that's how you're able to ask these kinds of questions. An average movement rate, so not moving too much, just a bunch of engineers and architects. And then the lowest, systems analysts. They're staying put at least a little more than the other job titles we just went through a moment ago. I'm going to pause because I need some water. Any questions that myself or my colleagues could potentially answer? And I'm sorry, I wish I could hear your voices, but any questions you can throw in the chat. Nope, all makes sense. Okay, I'll keep going. Thank you for letting me take a break. Now, I mentioned this earlier when we went through the agenda, movement based on years of experience. So 2 to 4 years of experience is almost 15%. They're moving out. It might make sense that these top 15 to 20 or 20 plus years of experience, it's pretty low. If you're trying to spend time recruiting someone who's been at a company for 15 years, that kind of feels like a lifer to me. Perhaps you would benefit from somewhere else. 0 to 2 years of experience, that's still fairly high, almost 15% or 14%, but they're still too new. It's too new. 2 to 4 is a healthy, happy place. 10 to 15 is also close to 15%, which I think is interesting. 8 to 10 is a little bit lower. There, I almost feel like, what's the narrative here? And folks, the people on the call, you guys would know this better than I do, but perhaps at 8 to 10 years of experience, that's when someone decides, okay, this is it. This is me for life. Maybe I'm going into leadership. Maybe I'm pivoting to a different department, what have you. So I love how there's such a drop from 6 to 8 and then 8 to 10. And that's the fun thing. When you have this information, when you have these kinds of data points, you can ask these questions with each other, and you're not just like kind of running around. Sorry, I won't use the phrase running around. You're not moving through the motions with anecdotal information that you don't have data to back up. And okay, Jack, you got your question answered. Fabulous. So how, from a tech talent perspective, are we making any progress with diversity hiring? Good news is, yes, the candidate searches for women, for females, that is increased, that is up. But the bad news, we only represent 0.17% of tech-related searches in total. And in the last couple of decades, the proportion of women to men in tech roles overarchingly has fallen. I'm And though I'm not one of the female tech talents, I promise you, these humans are so smart and they should be leveraged. So here are some skills to consider. For each job title, we found the top 3 hard skills searched for in the past 6 months. And that is Python, Java, and C++. Ooh, David, is a site that you can review for tons of ideas to recruit more. Oh, you're funny. Thank you for making me laugh. Now, let's take a step back. Where do you search for tech talent? If you are actually only looking on LinkedIn and leveraging the Booleans and whatever filters are available with LinkedIn Recruiter, then you're only going to see their LinkedIn profile, unless, of course, they hyperlink or add a GitHub or Stack Overflow or Kaggle profile. But a lot of tech talent, they're very, very active on profiles like the ones I just mentioned. And what's fantastic is that with hireEZ, because we are scanning the open web, any information pertaining to that particular person, typically linked by their personal email, will be brought into one place. So you can apply filters with your throughout easy sourcing, add all the mandatory skills, the preferred skills to affect the ranking. And then there's even a tech-specific filter that will only show you candidates that have a profile on at least GitHub, Kaggle, or Stack Overflow. And then we link it right to you, or you are presented with the link so you can go see their profile. This is very, very handy for a lot of our customers whose hiring managers are particular about the body of work that a potential developer or architect has already kind of shared or published. Some expertise to consider when you are next searching. Leverage the phrases full stack, back end, Java engineer, Amazon Web Services or AWS, Python, and Node.js. Some education. Now, I mentioned, of course, it would make sense to try and grab candidates from MIT, from Stanford, but what about all the people who are kind of rethinking their career? Personally, anecdote here. I have 2 very good friends who, one was a restaurant manager for 15 years, and then he took his savings and I think he actually leveraged Code Camp, purchased that, and he spent like 3 months going through this and like massive dev school, and now he's making 6 figures, which he had not been making previously, at his first company as a back-end developer, and loves it, loves his life. And he loved it so much that he even encouraged another one of our friends to quit his job and invest both time and money into that school. And then Lane got hired as a developer. And it's just like the return on investment that people, again, FOMO economy, candidates are no longer just like going to accept what's offered to them. They're making other things happen. So that means you need to meet them where they are and understand what kinds of things they're investing in. Coding courses like Coursera, Plural Insight, Udemy, Code Camp, and then of course, individual certifications that they can get just online through Microsoft, Google, AWS, Salesforce, and tons of boot camps. So that was some back-end hireEZ information. Now, what are the actual tactical strategies that we can leverage? So first of all, I'm going to zoom back a little bit. When you begin your sourcing search, instead of applying the filters immediately, instead of just going into, okay, I know I need this, this, and that, why don't you take a peek at what the real-time data is actually telling you? So what's happening in the market? What are the top titles? What are the top skills? Where do these humans live? Are we okay with a remote role? Can we make this a hybrid role? Like that would definitely expand our search. That would expand the results that we're getting. So essentially, figure out first what's actually out there and then decide how you're going to approach these humans. Second strategy, right off the top, address diversity, equity, and inclusion shortcomings in your organization with benchmarking information. So it's kind of hard to fix a problem if you don't know where the problem starts. So with easy insights and with just your existing talent pipeline inside of hireEZ, you can actually see, okay, how many of these candidates are of a diverse background. We have several different diversity. We have a diversity specific filter that can be applied. Of course, no one actually enters or creates a hireEZ profile. We are indeed leveraging artificial intelligence and machine learning to scrape or understand like certain comments or groups that people are part of. If they attended a historically Black college, this will be an assumption. So it's not in 100% art form, excuse me, it's an art, so not 100% accurate, but a very, very good way to refine your search. And when asked by a hiring manager, hey, because this happened to me, I was talking with the prospect and they said, it is a mandate from leadership. I don't know if this has happened to anyone, that anytime we source someone, set them up with an interview for the hiring manager, someone of a diverse background, and they specified what diverse meant to them, must also be presented. And so in the same day, you have to see both candidates. How are you going to do that if if you don't have the data or the ability to search for those people and then follow up and actually get in touch with them? Like it's going to be a really, really hard ask. Strategy number 3, search multiple databases so that you can see what is out there. And more importantly, you can find a candidate and then understand multiple facets of that candidate. The recruiter who recruited me to hireEZ found my photography website through hireEZ. She would not have known that unless she literally Googled me individually. I was like, hey, who is this chick? What does she do? What does she like? Which would have taken a lot of time. hireEZ completely, because it brought all the information together, it made that process much faster. And essentially, because we are aggregating information from all these different platforms, you no longer have to work in siloed buckets. Okay. And then this profile comes over here. Let me make sure I add this on the Google spreadsheet. I want my hiring manager to see everything about this candidate. Like it's going to be a good fit. I feel it. No, like let the technology do that for you. So again, from a tech talent perspective, we can pull things from Kaggle or Behance or Stack Overflow, in addition to their LinkedIn, in addition to their Facebook, or their Twitter and GitHub. So hopefully, did everyone click on the link, the blog about how Tiara personalized her approach? If you haven't, please do so. Probably the biggest strategy, in my opinion, is to contact candidates directly with customized messages. And then you can customize the messages in advance. You don't always have to do that the day of. You can leverage our automated drip campaigns so that candidates will be engaged when they feel comfortable at a speed that is appropriate. Don't go throwing people in sequences where you email them every other day until they respond to you. Like no one wants to be treated like a robot. Like treat them like the wonderful humans that they are. And what's great is that hireEZ then tracks opens, clicks, and of course replies. So you can iterate off of the messaging. Maybe you'll find, and we actually have data to back this up, that candidates most likely reply on the 3rd or 4th email. So maybe in the 3rd email, that's when you put like the juiciest part, like the most attractive part of your company or of the role you're offering them. Like I was speaking with several leaders actually in Europe yesterday, head of talent acquisition, and she said that a very big part of their outbound recruiting strategy is meeting people where they are in their life and their kind of like personal recruiting mission. And I love that they even had a talent acquisition mission, was to create a space where employees feel like they belong. And she said they used that messaging, or they introduced that messaging only in the 3rd email because they had data to back up. That's when candidates were most likely replying. So I just think that's fabulous. 5th strategy, and this is a good and juicy one. Integrate directly with your ATS or CRM to see old profiles people who have already applied, the silver medalists, what have you, whatever you want to call them, the humans who at one point in time were interested in your company, because recruiters are salespeople now, my friends. What do salespeople like calling? Like what, a cold lead or a warm lead? I'm curious. I know David Marr's answer already. I'm sure he would say, like, let's cold call all day. But for the rest of us on the call, who would you rather call? Someone who wants to hear from you or is at least aware of who you are? Thank you. Yes. The warm leads are the way to go. What stinks though, is that ATSs weren't really built to be sourcing tools. They were built to be an applicant tracking system or a candidate relationship management system, right? They're not search engines. hireEZ is. With hireEZ, we actually have developed easy rediscovery. It's a two-way integration. So you can pull all of those at one point in time, super useful candidates who were interested. You can pull their information into hireEZ, then enrich, deduplicate, clean, and update the information so that you actually know what Joe has been doing in the last 2 years. He might not have been the right fit 2 years ago, but now for the role that you have open, he's a fantastic fit, but you wouldn't know that because your ATS has information that is old and data is only as good as it is accurate. So that's massive. On the flip side, with hireEZ, it's very, very, I'm sorry, I'm just going to use the word easy. We sync directly with the ATSs. So once you find someone in hireEZ, don't waste your time like copying and pasting their information into your ATS. Like there's not a manual process because we've eliminated that. You just sync directly to your ATS. Okay. Now, the engagement process. I've talked a lot about automated drip campaigns, making sure that everyone is kind of making sure that you are putting these folks into a very customized and intentional outreach. All right. But we're humans. We are imperfect. We forget things. We forget follow-ups. And essentially, gain visibility into the candidate engagement process, share best practices, and closely collaborate with your team. hireEZ is intended to be kind of a one-stop shop, like bring all of your recruiting efforts into one place. Hiring managers have visibility into which candidates are being reached out to. It would kind of stink if two recruiters found the perfect candidate and they both reached out to them, maybe on LinkedIn. Like how icky would that feel for the candidate if they got basically the same message from two different humans? Like that company doesn't really feel organized to me, right? Like with hireEZ will tell you, hey, so-and-so on your team has already contacted this candidate. They've already viewed this candidate. Like, please make sure you connect with them, read the notes, read the tags. Like there is just so many ways for you guys to understand, okay, what have we done already? And what do we need to do now? And with whom? You can also set individual and personal reminders on certain candidates. Let's say if you have a phone call conversation with them and they're like, love it, into it, give me some time, just set a reminder. It doesn't make sense to put them into an automated email drip campaign, but that's okay because you can set it into your reminder. So some key takeaways, my friends. Look beyond the geographic hotspots that you think of today. So instead of New York, think Austin or Houston. That surprised me. Target companies with higher movement rate. So if there is an outflow of people leaving, my question would be why? What are they looking for? Can your company provide that to them? Look for candidates with 2 to 4 years of experience at a current company. It's the highest percentage of movement. Use sourcing platforms that have diversity, equity, and inclusion filters. And then go beyond LinkedIn with GitHub, Stack Overflow, Kaggle, even Facebook. Search for candidates with specific coding certifications, not just candidates with computer science degrees or went to the perfect school, right? Like we are investing in ourselves and we want the recruiters who want to get to know us to invest in themselves so they can get to know us in a very intentional way. I won't read this in an accent because that was pretty terrible last time. So I'll just read it to you normally. Steve Levy, Technical Recruiting Manager at Zipco. This era of outbound recruiting combines strategy, sourcing, engagement, data, and integrations. integrating with your email, integrating with your calendar scheduling, integrating with your ATS or CRM. It's the arsenal needed to accelerate the luck and the timing sourcers and recruiters need to find the right person, deliver the right message, of course, at the right time. Not the same message deployed on the same platform that everyone else does. So with outbound recruiting, as a perspective shift, once again, our recruiters, they are salespeople. And if they don't like it, have them call me. I will happily explain to them why it's probably the best, most rewarding job in the world. And help them understand that with an outbound recruiting workflow, everything is then put into their control. They can experience twice as fast of a sourcing process. They can find up to 5 times more qualified leads, qualified candidates. And then 70% of our customers are actually able to leverage hireEZ to find and at least interview more underrepresented talent. So diversity is key. Okay, I see I have one Q&A. When will EZ sync with top echelon big biller? Jane, oh, Reese, they're going to answer this question live. Jane,
oh, no,
I don't.
You are. I was about to say. I just made sure that you were answering it live here, and I didn't have to type it.
Oh yes, I see it. Jane, great question. I don't know the answer. Reese, do we have her email so I can get that answered for her?
I can grab it from them and see what I can do.
Okay, wonderful. Oh, guys, again, this has been very strange because I've gotten minimal feedback throughout. How are we feeling? Did we at least walk away with 1 or 2 nuggets of, hadn't thought about that, or, I should say something? Anybody? Thank you, Kevin. Love the enthusiasm. Thank you, David. Donald, you're sweet. I hope your team feels like they learned something. D&D. Does anyone have? Oh, Tony. Ooh, love that. How would you distinguish hireEZ over some of our competitors? So first and foremost, we do not require any of the users to know Boolean. A lot of our competitors are still very heavily Boolean based, which if you are a prime Boolean user, then there isn't necessarily that. If you're a prime Boolean user and that's what works for you, I would encourage you to think, okay, what are some possible candidates that you aren't seeing because Boolean is such an exact search? We absolutely have invested so much in our natural language processing and contextual search so that not every role is named the same, not every role is created equally, right? So we offer, hey, how about this? Suggestions. Think about like your Amazon shopping cart. Everyone has Amazon, maybe you don't. But even when you're Googling something, there are suggestions, and those suggestions prompt you to think about the next, to move on, to iterate. That's the number one thing, in my opinion. The second is that we do have the largest talent pool. So we just recently announced we have reached over 800 million candidates that can be found within hireEZ on a global scale. So that's pretty cool. And then the second big piece, or excuse me, the third big piece, we are constantly investing in more integrations. And Jane, again, I will get that question answered with ATSs and CRMs. We help you maximize the investment that you've already spent. Like that is a gold mine of information. If you're not able to, like in a fluid way or in a streamlined way, if you're not able to access those candidates and engage with them, hireEZ can help. And David, thank you. We're not saying bye-bye Boolean. There is a Boolean builder inside of the sourcing tool. Jane, can you show some of the reports you would share with a client on a search you have been doing for them? Ooh, I'm happy to quickly go into a demo, but I don't know if that's appropriate, Reese, what you would want me to do there. And then Jeff, great question. I will also have to take that offline. I don't know the roadmap for the emojis. They will. I hope they will. My gosh. Kumara, Reese, if you know the answers to any of these awesome questions. No. Reese. No.
I'm here. Don't worry. I don't know any of these questions, the answers, unfortunately. It is not my world, but I will say we can screenshot these and we can always send a follow-up email.
Absolutely. I still have 27 people on. Lovely. Okay, but I personally want to find out the roadmap for the emoji. That's fantastic. Then will hireEZ use AI to help automate the sourcing recruiting process? I mean, 100%. That's, if you are interested in a demo, there are a ton of really amazing AEs here, salespeople who would happily show you what that looks like. And Reese, let me know. I am okay to share, like maybe quickly go through a sourcing search for like a developer role, if that might be helpful for Jane.
Yeah. Go right ahead.
Okay. Oh, Michelle, that's great. Does hireEZ replace LinkedIn or would you still use both? Michelle, I want to, yeah, thank you, Kumar. I want to address that. A lot of our customers are kind of doing a slow replace. Some have stuck with a hybrid model because the size of their teams or just kind of, this has been working. Why would we change from a change management perspective? But 100,000%, LinkedIn is one of the 45 platforms that we source from. So there is no candidate on LinkedIn that you wouldn't be able to find in hireEZ. How do you ensure emails, content info are up to date, and what's the rhythm of updating? Ooh, good question. So in terms of how often the data is updated, depending on the role, tech roles, we actually are on an average of a 30-day cycle of like re-updating that. Other roles are closer to 60 days or maybe even a quarter, simply because they're not as often searched for. But I did want to answer that question. David, LinkedIn is overpriced. Okay, Michelle, did that answer that? You said thanks, so you're good there. Awesome. All right, friends. Thank you for your time. I hope this was helpful to the 16 people who are still on.
Thanks, Rachel. Thanks, everybody. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you soon.